documentation is fun. The most important thing with documentation, though, is that it's easy to find. So getting clear on how people in your organization are or are not finding documentation is really important. Logical location. So ideally, we have stuff in one system, whether that's like it's all in Google Drive or it's all in Box or it's all in brand folder, like whatever we're using, it's all in one place. That's not always realistic, especially in a larger organization. But in that case, you want to look at the titles of these documents. I would rather have you have 4 documents or 5 documents with very specific titles than one guide to all the things that contains all of that information, because people will not be able to find it. So really accurate titles, really consistent titles. So that's going to look different in every organization, but some of the things that I found really helpful is if it shows you how to do something, it needs to start with how to. How to create a new document in the CMS. How to initiate a brief. How to make it easy for people to find, and also make it easy for people to understand what's in a document, so you're not doing the open, no, that's not the one, let me try. No, that's not the one, right? We're wasting a lot of time there, and the consistent and accurate titles goes a long way. The other thing is you should never create a document without a clear understanding of what it's for. I know this came up over here with our content, but the same is true for documentation. I've found a lot of really detailed, well-meaning documentation that is entirely unusable because it started out as how to put something in the CMS, and now it's got like how to edit the photo metadata, and like it's got like 46 other different things in it. So singular goal, really clear title, and put it somewhere that people will know where to find it, obviously is key. And if you think like this is not that serious, this is nope, that's not it. This is recent data. Employees spend on average 2.5 hours per day looking for information. Just looking for stuff. Like, imagine if we could get paid for while we're like looking for stuff at home. Like, that would be great. But no, we're getting paid for 2+ hours a day to just be trying to find the things that we need. Like, that's an insane waste of time. It's an insane waste of the very little resources we're already working with. So having really easy to find documentation is going to help with a lot of that. And again, having a clear guide, one go-to place that links up all of your clear documentation is super helpful for this. The next one is that it's got to be easy to understand, because if we find it and then it's a big steaming pile of garbage, we're not really any better off. So some of the things to keep in mind is that a document needs to have some sort of logical order to it. So even if you have 4 or 5 things you need to list out in that document, like carefully consider which one would they actually need to know first, because chronological order is not always the best way to go if step number 4 impacts how you do step number 1. Right, so think about the order of these things and make sure they're getting what they need when they need it, not necessarily when they do it, if that distinction makes sense. The other thing is visuals. I don't know about you all, but like it's incredibly difficult to describe actions that you're taking like inside of any sort of system, right? Go over the hamburger menu and click the 3rd thingy from the left, and then like go over 1 bar and then down 2, and then hover over the button, but double click it, don't single click it. Like, sometimes it's a lot easier to just have a visual, right? Show where the button is, show what something looks like when it's correct versus when it's incorrect, show what warning labels or errors might come up and what to do about those things. This can be super, super helpful. I'll share some tools for this in a little bit, but the other thing I highly recommend is getting some sort of video capture tool. There's lots of them that do this. Loom, Screencastify, there's a ton, but they will work really well to help you capture a process and save you the stress of actually having to type out, go to the hamburger menu and click the 3rd thing and then the 2nd thing. Avoid jargon. It's really easy to start throwing in like your common acronyms, your internal stuff, but there's a really good chance that that documentation is going to need to be used or seen by someone who is new, or someone who's not in your department, or someone who is not a full-time employee, and so you want to avoid some of those pieces of jargon, which are going to create more questions, more follow-up, and more bottleneck. And the other thing is active voice. Like, I know this sounds silly, we're going back to like high school English here, but sometimes it's really easy to talk about the content or the process as if it's the entity, but like your people are the entity. So like you should click here, like go over to this place rather than like this should be selected and upon that time. Like, it's easy to feel like documentation has to be really like highfalutin, and we kind of lose sight of the action, like the active things that we're doing. If you need some encouragement on that, going back, there we go. The average American reading level is 7th to 8th grade, and I say that not to be depressing, but as a reminder that our documentation needs to be simple if it's going to be understood. A lot of us are going to be referencing documentation when you're in the middle of something else, when you're multitasking, when you're on one of those meetings that definitely should have been a Slack message, but we didn't have the meeting documentation, so nobody knew. So this is one of those things where you really want to make sure you're keeping it as simple as possible. Longer is not always better for our documentation. All right, and the last one is going to be, it needs to be easy to navigate, because if I find the document, and then I click on it and it's like 47 pages long and it's all just like a block of straight text, like my eyes are glazing over just thinking about it, right? So the simple stuff, but can really make it a lot easier to scan through. So keeping the formatting simple, like you don't have to get the design team to come in and like, make this all serious. Like it can just be text and bullets and then drop in some screenshots or videos. Take advantage of titles and subtitles, use bullets, cross-link, like all the basic like general document etiquette, which, is that a thing? I don't know if that's a thing, but I think you know what I mean, right? So like general document etiquette there. And if you need some help on how to use plain language and make it really easy to navigate, this is another one you might want to screenshot or write down or take a picture, plainlanguage.gov/guidelines. I know, you're thinking the government giving us ideas on how to use simple language. How could that be? But this is actually pretty good. I'm guessing it was created by someone not in the government. But it's good advice on how to use plain language, how to create really simple documentation that's easy to understand. So really good reference to have. All right, so do you believe me now that documentation is fun? Maybe just a little? Okay. One thing to note too is document versioning. So if you have different people who are doing a process, they may need a different perspective. Like what does this look like when you're an admin versus when you're a regular user, right? How do you do this process as a freelancer versus as an employee when you may have access to different tools? So consider whether you need multiple versions of these things. This can also happen at a hierarchical level where we want people who are at this level of the organization to have this much access and do this many things, but if you are a senior, an executive, a VP, a director, we want you to do it with a greater level of detail, a greater level of oversight, for example. And the next thing is document maintenance, which is like just as much fun as documentation, I think, like creating it, but maybe that's just me. It's really important to update the documents regularly. Set a reminder in your calendar every 3 to 6 months for those vital documents and processes that are being referenced on a regular basis. They get out of date really quickly. One UX update to your tool and all of your screenshots are irrelevant, and you can't use any of those guides anymore, right? And I know that sounds like a pain, but even just a ping every 3 months in your calendar to say, hey, do I need to add new screenshots? Do I need to update now that we have this new process, or we've changed the workflow, we've changed the org chart, just making sure things are updated. Now it can be really tempting to have everyone in the organization helping you with this. You get like HR coming in on the bottom and they're like, we got a lot of thoughts about the language here, and then accounting comes in with the clipboards, finance, they're always just a pain. They're coming in, making it messy, right? And then the art department comes in and they're just chilling. They're trying to make it beautiful, and that's not helpful at all. So if you do need to involve other organizations, or if multiple departments are going to use this, designate one person from each department to be like the document czar, the document approver, the document keeper. I don't know. Give him a cool title. I promise, it's really fun. So having one person from each department or stakeholder that can really help own that documentation helps distribute it without it getting too unwieldy. So here's some of the tools that can help you with the things I talked about. So Google Drive, really common choice for storing documentation and making it. Notion, increasingly popular. My business partner I run a mastermind called Creator Kitchen for creators, and he calls me Notion One Kenobi is like his nickname for me, because I'm like, yeah, let's make a Notion page, love it. Scribe is another tool that does a really good job of capturing your screen and then creating documentation for you.